Hey guys, welcome back to Mayday-san Airsoft in Japan, and this is the infamous MCX Virtus by Sig Airsoft gun. And I say infamous because on this channel, this gun has been my most broken, worked on gun that I've had in the entire 2 years that I played Airsoft. I've had this thing for about a year and a half, and I've only used it for like 2 months of it because half the time it's just been broken. And let this video be a buyer beware, I guess, of the MCX Virtus, and kind of not a warning, but just something you have to kind of consider before you decide to purchase the MCX. Because one of the coolest parts about this gun, airsoft gun anyway, is that it is tactical. Look at this thing, man. It is just super cool, futuristic to the max. And oh man, chef's kiss. When I first saw this in Modern Warfare 2019 as the M13, I fell in love with this thing right away. And I was super excited when they actually released one. And I was able to pick one up for a pretty good price. Because it is pretty expensive, because it actually has those SIG markings and everything like that. It is officially licensed by SIG, and it's made by VFC, so don't get that mixed up. And it is 1-to-1 with the real thing. So yes, you can change out the handguard, I guess the grip and the receiver. Actually, not the grip because you have to put the motor in there, but like the buffer tube and all that stuff can be switched out with real parts. So something to consider if you are in a country that lets you do that at an affordable price. So what we're going to do to review this thing is go tip to butt, okay, and review each part and kind of just talk about what's good and what's bad, or any of the issues I had, and kind of just tell the story of this mother-father gentleman here. So start with the top here, which is the flash hider. Okay, so the flash hider is a cool, surefire 3-prong flash hider. One of the bad things about this is that because it's so wide and you can kind of stick your finger in, it can get caught on grass and barricades and stuff like that. So you got to be careful. And that is where the first issue begins. So this flash hider is connected to the outer barrel, right? Which is connected to the gas block, which is held by a barrel nut inside the upper receiver here like this. And that is the first issue. So the barrel nut, okay, is literally just 2 little prongs that are being held by 2 screws. And if you bang this free-floating outer barrel, it's not held down by the handguard. It's literally just like a floating handguard like this. And if you hit something with it, if you hit a barricade or anything, or drop the gun, this thing is going to become loose, and it's also going to become an influence on your accuracy and your outer barrel and your inner barrel as well. So if you're an OCD person like me and you don't like any wobble and play in your rifle, in your airsoft rifles, just be aware of this outer barrel. It can wiggle around and move a lot if you so much as bang this thing on anything. And just over time, with the recoil from the actual gearbox itself, it will loosen up over time. And if you try and tighten it inside, you have to be very, very careful, because you may strip those screws. And I did. I stripped the screws on this, and I had to contact SIG and get this thing sent over. Then had to go through Lilacs. I had to go through Lilacs because I'm in Japan, and we had this whole thing sorted out, and I had to get like spare parts for that, and it was such a nightmare. And probably not confirming or anything like that because of that incident. And I'm sure other people in Japan had the same incident, because if you want to take down this rifle and change out whatever and whatever you want to do, and take out the outer barrel and open up the gearbox, you have to unscrew those barrel nuts, and they can strip. So what Lilacs ended up doing is they ended up making a reinforced barrel nut. So it actually has 2 additional screws and a reinforced steel plate. So it's a lot better now. And now that I have that in here, this thing doesn't wobble anymore. So it's really, really good. And I can trust it with my airsoft life. So just be aware of that barrel nut. It can strip if you're not careful. And just make sure after you do anything internally, and once it's all sound, then thread lock that shit, because it's gonna come loose if you don't do that. And it will still come loose even if you thread lock it. So if you can get your hands on that Lilacs outer barrel reinforced supporter, please go get that thing. It's quite expensive though, but it's worth it in the end if you want to do that. So moving on to that handguard, the handguard here, and what I don't like about it. What I do like about it is that it's fucking cool, okay? It's probably the coolest handguard out there. It's super light because it's skeletonized, and it is modular. So you can change it out for a rattler one, so you can get the short rattler, or you can get the patrol, the long one. If you have of those parts available, especially those you in the States, you can probably get those. In Japan, it's gonna be a little bit harder. Now, what I don't like about this handguard is that it does host the battery, and the battery is at the front here. So if you want to insert the battery, you have to remove the handguard by taking out this body pin here and then sliding out the handguard. I'm not going to disassemble it because that goes against terms of service for some reason on YouTube, and I'll get demonetized. So not going to do that. So you can see here, I have my nice cool little aesthetic here. I have my little elastic bands and my electric tape. So every time I'm going to want to use this, I'm going to have to undo all this, take out the handguard, insert the battery in this little tiny compartment here, rewire this thing, and then put it back in, and then put all my accessories back on. And then during lunchtime, I have to do the same thing when I start running out of juice on the battery. So that kind of sucks that you can't have a permanent solution, something like my Mark 18 or even my MP5 or anything like that. I have to kind of think about this as a temporary thing and have to redo it every freaking time, with the exception of maybe this light switch here. I could probably just kind of get away with that easily. Another weird thing is that this thing didn't come with iron sets. So I got these really, really ugly M-Bus backup irons, and I don't like them. I wish I can get the actual ones from the M13, like those Scar type looking ones, which would have been really cool, but I don't think they make them. So kind of sucks ores, but at the end of the day, that's just a small thing. But the biggest thing is that the handguard is so modular that you can't keep things permanent on here because of the nature of where the battery is. Now, you can do that thing where people do you kind of externalize the battery and you put it into a PEC 15 and then do it from there. I don't want to do that though, because I don't like using PEC 15s. They're annoying and they disrupt my sight picture, so don't like that either. Another problem I had with this gun, the very first time I used it, or the second time I used it, was this QD. And this QD actually came out. I was playing a woodland game, and this QD itself actually came out. And then I had to like tighten it with the actual QD itself, and it never came out ever since. But that QD coming out was really, really scary. So just something to consider when it comes to that. And speaking of QDs, there's only one QD on this rifle, and it's this one. Okay, don't be confused by this one, because there's a gearbox in here. This actually doesn't work. Okay, it does not fit. The QD does not go in. So do not assume that this is going to work. That is not a QD point. It is a lie. So that kind of sucks. The original stock that it does come with does have a swivel that you can actually attach it to there, but we'll talk about that when we get to that part. So handguard's done. It's cool, but it is kind of annoying when you have to take down and stuff like that. So kind of sucks there. Let's talk about the receiver. So the receiver, when I want to talk about this receiver, I want to talk about the first thing here, which is the magwell. This magwell is the most annoying magwell. The best word for it in Japanese is bimyo. Like, it's good, but there's just something off about it that I don't like. And that is the fitment of magazines. And I've talked about this before. It is just super weird. It just doesn't fit normal mags. Sometimes it's too loose. Sometimes it fits perfectly. From my experience, the EPM magazines fit the best out of all of them. And the Crytek ones also fit well. But this, my go-to would definitely be the EPMs, because you can dash these on the ground, unlike the Crytek. So kind of sucks. So what I've done in the magwell here is I've actually added some, you can't really see it, but there's electric tape right here, if you can see that. There's electric tape in there to actually make it more snug and to make the feeding a lot easier. But one of the biggest issues from the beginning is that if you can look inside, you can't really see it, but inside there's the wiring that goes to the front of the handguard actually passes through the magwell. And the way they do it is that the magazine will actually pinch this rifle. I mean, will actually pinch the wires itself and damage them over time. So you actually have to wire them through. So what I ended up doing, and what Lilacs ended up doing, was creating a wire mod. So it's a little screw that goes into the gearbox, and then you can pass it over that little screw. So now there's nothing actually interfering with my magazine well at all anymore, because I got that little mod in there. So that's already another red flag, that there's two things that you have to get for super important parts, like the wiring and the outer barrel. So that kind of sucks about that. Oh, another thing here is that okay, this is admittedly my mistake. So my tech and I decided that one of the reasons why this thing doesn't actually hold magazines well is because of the mag catch being too big for airsoft magazines, as it is like maybe 1-to-1 spec. That didn't end up being the case. So we actually had to add industrial cement to kind of restore the magazine catch, because we kind of shaved it down just a tiny bit and it wasn't holding magazines, and that's kind of my fault. But now it's fine because we added some industrial cement on there, and now it holds perfectly fine. So let's move on to another thing that kind of broke on this thing. So another curse is this charging handle. Okay, so this charging handle here, okay, as you can see, it actually has the real steel double spring system when you actually press down the bolt. So if I were to press down the bolt here, it will actually have this really, really strong pushback, I guess. But it is a mock bolt, so it actually doesn't actually move or do anything. It does reveal the hop unit pretty easily though, which is nice, like that. And then you can kind of go from there like that, just by pressing the button. Now, one of the issues with this is that this ended up breaking too. So what we actually have in here is a screw holding down the mock dummy plate, like an actual screw and some super glue. Because before it's held down by this little like nub thing, and that broke off just by the sheer force of this blowback, I guess, if that's the word, of the bolt carrier moving forward, or the dummy thing moving forward, because of the double spring system that mimics the actual thing in here. So that's kind of disappointing that actually happens. Luckily, we were able to fix that thing by using some makeshift solutions, but just something that was really, really surprising and really, really disappointing there, like that. So that kind of sucked. Staying on the receiver here, what I do like is I do like this mag catch. It's really, really big and really, really easy to press. I don't like the fire select. It's really, really weird and has this really weird rotary sound. So that's one of the downsides to that. The trigger is okay. Internally is what we're going to talk about next. So what was wrong with this thing internally? Well, nothing. At the start, when I used it stock, okay, it just sounded like a crying puppy, but it performed pretty well. Mind you, it is performing at a reduced performance level because it shoots hot for here in Japan. So I think what they did is they changed the spring out. So it's not performing at its optimal condition, but it was performing fine. So what we ended up doing, and what have probably been my own mistake, was upgrading this thing right out of the box after only using the gun once, instead of kind of getting used to the gun over time. So what we did immediately is we overhauled this thing and we threw a DSG in here, and then I was running this thing on 11.1s. Now the problem with that is that the 11.1 was way too strong, I guess, or something for this. So we had a slew of issues with this gun. And I think that was the main problem. I think one of the main issues with this thing is that we upgraded to a DSG and was running at 11.1, and I was running this thing pretty aggressively and pretty hard, that the Avalon box just could not handle it. So what ended up happening is the motor almost gave out. What else almost gave out? Now, mind you, I wasn't shooting full auto because you don't really full auto in Japan. So this is all semi-auto. So the motor was starting to give out because the grip that originally came with this thing sucks ass. So it like super smoky. Did not like it. Motor started to give out. The stock gear started to strip. So what my tech ended up doing is he ended up, what did he end up doing? He changed a bunch of plates, like the tappet plate and the tappet gear, whatever, the three main gears. He changed it all to nice parts, and then it was shooting fine for a while. And then after that, it just stopped feeding. The nozzle, the VFC nozzle actually ended up breaking. The piston, was there like a reinforced piston? We had that in there. I'm not sure what's in here anymore. But basically, we upgraded the thing, and I think it was just too hard for the system. So what ended up happening is this thing was not feeding anymore. Like, it stopped feeding and it stopped shooting. The hop was screwed up. Everything was kind of screwed up. And what ended up being a major factor to that not feeding, no matter what nozzle we put in, no matter what hop rubber we put in, was that the actual gearbox itself started to warp at the front here. It started to actually warp and ruin the seating of the hop unit, so, and the nozzle. So that was really, really scary. So what we ended up doing after all this time and months of working on this thing, we got a regular ass VFC new Avalon gearbox, and we returned this thing to stock. It's basically stock with the new motor now. So no more DSG, no more Gucci gears or plates or reinforced piston or anything like that, or the cool nozzle or anything like that. It's literally just a stock gun now with the new motor, and it's just kind of a fresh start kind of thing going on. So even then, at the time of this recording, I haven't fielded this thing yet, so maybe it's still going to shoot like shit, or it's going to have a really bad accuracy. But after all that time and work, this thing just kind of had to go back to roots and just kind of go back to normal. One of the things that was recommended to me is that if you do want to upgrade this thing manually without putting a Titan, because I think if you just went Titan and the stock gears, it would be fine, and then that was it. That you call it end of the day. But if you want to upgrade it manually, you have to go get that reinforced VFC gearbox or something. You got to get a reinforced gearbox if you want this thing to work with the Avalon thing. That being said, I still think it's a cool gun. And I do like that it has a quick change spring system. So if I want to play indoors with this thing, I can just change out the spring, get like an M70 or something like that, and it'll be fine. So that's that. I guess the last thing here is the stock that it comes with. It's like a PDW stock. I hate that stock. It's really short. I'm a very big person, so I can't really shoulder the thing properly with that. So we actually changed this out to a Midwest Industries buffer tube, and then a Real Steel CTR Magpul stock, which is really, really nice. It's secure, and I can actually get a proper shoulder on this thing. Sometimes this thing will wobble because I'm so scared of actually tightening it down, but it's supposed to have like 40 tons or something like that of torque, or not 40 tons, like 40 kilograms of torque on the actual screw here. So I'm gonna probably just screw this down later, but for now, I think it's fine. We have our hollow sun on top as well, just to be cool like that. But guys, this was the MCX journey and kind of the issues with it. For anybody who wants to purchase this thing, I would say keep it stock, guys. Keep it stock. Buy the reinforced parts. Go get that wire mod. Go get that barrel stuffer. I mean the barrel supporter, and try and get a buffer tube, because the regular stock sucks. And if you want to get the Sig stock, I think that shit's like $600. So if you want to get that, go get that. But I think you're better off just getting like the Lilacs buffer tube adapter and then just throwing on whatever you want from there. Oh yeah, and then mags, EPM mags. And last thing about this EPM mag is that I actually had to put a BB like inside the follower so that it would actually feed, because this thing will actually, I think there's a bad batch of EPMs, they will actually just spit out BBs and you're screwed. So just be careful with that. But other than that, that is the MCX, guys. Super cool gun. Does have its issues. You're not going to be getting that Tokimaru quality control, but as long as you keep it clean and don't over work this thing, I think it'll be an all right gun for you. Just be aware of those three things that I said about the barrel nut and the magwell and the wire mod, and of course the internal upgrades. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for today. Let me know what you think about the MCX Virtus in the comment section down below, and hopefully we'll have some gameplay of this thing soon. But until then, guys, thanks for watching. Bye bye.